All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to lesson four, number three, GLSL POPs, working with multiple inputs. So this lesson in our GLSL for POPs and TouchDesigner course is going to focus on using multiple inputs to enable a wider range of behaviors and more complex systems than we otherwise would have been able to. I think this is a really powerful technique, and I'm also excited about the examples that we have. So we'll get into that. But first, I want to introduce myself. I'm a new media artist. My name is Lake Heckerman. I explore how technology alters human perception and how we connect with each other. I do this through interactive installations. Often I create using TouchDesigner, and very often I use GLSL also. Here's some examples of work that I've created in the past. This work was shown on a very large display in China. These were exhibited during Art Basel. This was a New York exhibition last year, and this is a weather reactive permanent installation in Medellin, Colombia. So, like I said, I use GLSL for all these works. It's really deep in my practice, and I'm happy to be able to share that. So today, we're going to focus on working with multiple inputs in POPs in TouchDesigner. And it's a little bit different than using multiple tops, so it'll be good to go through. And the example that we're going to work with is interference patterns. So interference patterns are awesome. They're super organic. They're also quite simple and can be really flexibly created using the system that we're going to develop. Not very much code, not very many operators, and a really good introduction to using multiple inputs. So first, what are interference patterns? Well, interference patterns are what we're seeing in front of us, but more specifically, interference patterns are what happens when there are multiple periodic waves that stack on top of each other and yield interesting dynamics. So one example of interference patterns could be the surface of a wave, but commonly also ripples colliding on a body of water, one-dimensional interference in things like music, and then of course you could have three-dimensional interference as well. The general algorithm for creating or simulating interference patterns is going to be defining a number of waves. Each of these waves will have their own period, amplitude, maybe phase, and you could also define more wave-specific parameters such as the function to use, like persistence. There's truly can go crazy, and more specificity can be used to simulate more complex or specific phenomena. We're keeping it really broad in this lesson. I do have some more in-depth interference patterns tutorials that I'll make sure in the description. You can go and check those out if you would like. I dive into the interference patterns more specifically and do things like interactive interference patterns and also using SDFs in interference patterns. So if you're interested, go check those out. But our algorithm for today is going to be one, defining the waves. Then we're going to start with a set of points that we're going to be kind of operating on. These points are going to be what we're running our shader over. For every point, we're going to calculate how far that point is away from each of our wave sources. And using the distance and the wave specific parameters, we'll calculate the contribution to that point from that wave. And by doing this across all of the waves that affect a given point, we will then be able to produce the final interference pattern. So that's pretty straightforward, I think. And ideally, it will be easy for us to implement in TouchDesigner. So what we're going to do is define each of our waves by using a pop. So this pop might have, in this case, 4 points if we have 4 waves. And each of those waves will have an attribute for period, amplitude, phase, and whatever else you like. Then we'll define our source. In this case, it'll be like a grid of points. And then we'll use a separate GLSL pop to iterate over all of those points and apply the impacts of each of those waves that we're defining with a separate pop, resulting in something like you see here. So we're going to jump into this very shortly. The remainder of this video is going to be for Patreon subscribers only. It takes a decent bit of work to put all these things together, and so I appreciate your support, me doing that. If you want to continue watching and grab the project files, head over to Patreon, subscribe. The $20 tier will get you access to all the project files and videos for this lesson, as well as every other lesson in the GLSL for Pops course, all lessons and project files for my GLSL 101 for TouchDesigner course, and dozens of tutorials that I've created on various topics regarding TouchDesigner over the last couple of years. So, with all that said, go check it out if you want to continue. And for everybody that is